Hello and welcome to another episode of Earth Your While. I'm Jack.
And I'm Ellie. This is the podcast where we chat to industry experts and sustainable business leaders as we try to uncover the easiest and most effective ways to make your business better for the planet.
Today we're with Andy from Business on Purpose.
Hi, nice to be with you both.
That's the intro. So you're like a guru that helps people become B Corp accredited, is that right?
Yeah, you know all the Mr. Men book series. I'm wondering about getting one written called Mr. B Corp.
Yeah, you should do it.
Nice.
Yeah, a little man in the shape of a bee, perhaps with little legs and a big bold head. I think that would be absolutely great.
Bestseller.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've met you because you're helping us on our B Corp journey. So Eleanor's always talking about you. So I feel like I know you, but I've never met you before. I don't know if you want to just explain like what B Corp is and.
Yeah, sure. I mean, when people ask me, what's B Corp? I've heard you talk all the time about B Corp. What is it? The easiest explanation is B Corp is to business what fair trade is to coffee. So when I go out and buy my coffee, I look for a fair trade mark, and I know that there's a degree of provenance behind that. Hopefully there's a certain amount of audit that goes on to make sure that people are not being exploited. People get paid fair wages. It's not trashing the environment in any way. And I guess to a large extent, that's exactly what it is with B Corp, because when you're doing business with a company, how do you know that company is a good company? It's pretty much impossible to tell. And I don't think any of us would necessarily trust what anybody's written on a website because you just don't really know what's out there. So I often meet business owners and I say to them, do you think you run a good business, an ethical business? And of course, they all say, yes, of course I do, cheeky thing. Who do you think you are to say that? But then when I say, well, how do you know it's ethical? Have you been able to measure it? Has anybody else audited that? And how do you measure up against other ethical businesses? At that stage, most of them say, well, you got me there. So I think going through B Corp, if someone's cheeky enough to say, do you run an ethical business? You can say, yes, I do. And here's how I know why, because I've been through the impact assessment, I've measured it, I've found some gaps because we're not perfect, none of us are perfect, but we found some gaps, we've improved it, and we've still got a plan to improve. And I've been audited by an external company. And so I know that it's true. And on top of that, I've decided to change my articles at Companies House. So it's baked into the company's legal documents that we are going to be a purposeful business. And I think that would be a pretty cool answer to give someone when they ask you that question.
Yeah, definitely. Mic drop moment. I think for us, we took the decision really early on to make our company ethical and sustainable. I don't really like that word, but I think for us, we noticed. I'm right in saying, it's a bit of a minefield. There's so many grey areas, and who knows what's the right thing to do and what's important and where to start. And I think you were saying like the best thing about B Corp was it's that kind of framework. It's a kind of a roadmap that gets you on a journey and it takes all the stress out of it, I think. So
yeah, when I came across it, I thought it was more environmental. We had this environmental tool and we were looking maybe for some form of accreditation, but I didn't realize that it's a lot more in depth than that. It's more of an ongoing thing. It's not so much you go and get your B Corp certificate and then you just go away and that's the end of it. It's ongoing, isn't it? So you have to. I mean, it's a long process anyway. Yeah. And then if you once you kind of get the B Corp accreditation, which you hopefully do, then you have to recertify, don't you? And
you're right.
Get better.
there's numerous environmental certifications out there, and each one of them is great, whether it's a One Planet Mark or ISO 14001. There's lots out there. But when I was going through the process originally with my own business a couple of years ago, I want it to be more than just the environmental stuff. And I'm not decrying environmental. I'm not saying it's just environmental. Environmental is hugely important, but there are other things as well in terms of how we look after our staff and customers and suppliers and so on and so forth. I think all of that stuff has got a real intersect with environmental stuff anyway. So I think my view is, look at it as a how can I live a fitter and healthier lifestyle as an individual and as a business, in the same way as I might go out and exercise and eat more healthily, maybe to run the London Marathon or to run a 5K or whatever. There would be that one-off moment, but actually the benefit is in becoming a better, fitter, stronger, healthier business over the long term. That's really the main win in all of this. And I do love the fact that it's audited. I think that's great. I also love the fact that you get recertified every 3 years. As you say, it's not a one-off, right, got it, we're B Corp forever. You will go through a new certification in 3 years' time, and it won't be re-answer exactly the same questions again. And you can say, well, 3 years later, let's just answer the same as we did 3 years before, and hopefully get the same marks. It absolutely does not work that way. There's a new impact assessment that is coming out in about a year's time that will change it from being 5 sections to being 10 sections. That's not to say there's an additional 5 sections, but they've been a little bit more granular in the way they've sliced the cake. And they've also, or they will be introducing the fact that there are certain minimum standards on some of those 10 sections that you have to achieve. At the moment, in theory, because it's an 80-point threshold, you could do really badly in one section, but exceptionally well in other sections and make up for it, which would potentially cause some anomalies. So the new certification tool will box off those issues and say that there's certain minimum thresholds that every company needs to make across the board. So they're continually refining it. They've done that by going out to their stakeholders and engaging in a consultation process. So I like, again, that B Corp and B Lab walk the walk when they talk about stakeholder engagement. It's not just a talk the talk thing. So it's a great journey. But initially, people just need to step on the set of scales and say, well, how heavy do I weigh? Where am I at now? And then come up with an improvement plan going forwards. And I think that's my kind of biggest passion and burning issue at the moment, is I just want people to take that first step and get their initial measurement to see where they're at, and then come up with an improvement plan. And you can do that through the program relatively quickly. I'm not saying easily. It's definitely not easy. If I was to go out and run a couch to 5K tomorrow or get on the program, it wouldn't be easy, far from it. But it would at least give me a journey within a specific time frame that I could know that within 2 to 3 months, I could be in a different position than I am today. And I think that's hugely encouraging, because people sometimes get daunted at the prospect of going through B Corp. When they first open the impact assessment, I think they quite often think, oh my giddy aunt, that's a real biggie. We weren't expecting something quite that big. But Ellie, you've been through the program, and we split it up into bite-sized chunks, and anyone can do it effectively.
Yeah, I think what's really nice about how you do it, you do the kind of cohort thing with businesses, don't you? I don't know if you want to explain how you do that. So is it to help kind of smaller businesses, or do you cater for all types?
So we cater for all types of businesses. So I did some numbers over the weekend, and in the last 2 years, I've helped 180 businesses, which has been fantastic.
Yeah.
They have probably been 120 businesses that are smaller, and by that I mean sub £2 million, and 60 that are north of 2 million. Largest has been over 1 billion, more than 10,000 people. So big FTSE style size companies. So it's suitable for them. Most of my businesses have been UK, but I've also had clients that I've supported in Bulgaria, Norway, Poland, Brazil, Argentina, Singapore, Tasmania, and Australia. So good old Zoom helps you, get out there, which has been great. But when I went through my own B Corp certification, I was offered some consultation help, bearing in mind it was just me in the business starting off, bootstrapping, all of that good stuff. And I was offered some consultation, but it was £5,000, which was just well beyond my reach. So I kind of struggled through, got some help. The day after I got my B Corp certification in August 2020, my mate Daryl rang me and said, Andy, congrats, you've got B Corp. Can you give me a hand? I want it too. I was like, what do I know, Daryl? But you're my mate. Of course I'll help you. And within a month, I'd had 5 other businesses, 5 other mates ring me saying, can you help? So I thought that there's something in it, and kind of moved across to doing B Corp consultancy from then on. And around this time 2 years ago was Bristol Technology Festival. And Nick Sturge, who runs Bristol Tech Fest, or was helping to run it then, came to me and said, I think there's a lot of small tech companies in Bristol who'd like to go B Corp, but there's no way that they can afford £5,000 worth of consultancy. Can we not do something to help? So 2 years ago, we launched our first cohort, and we'll have our next cohort starting soon, which is the sort of 2-year anniversary of our first cohort. And in that 2 years, I've run 25 cohorts, which is, put that 120 or so through the cohort business. And we wanted to do that so that companies that had a much more cost-effective access to some support. So the 10-step Couch to 5K program, which we run for all businesses, no matter what size they are. For the smaller ones, we put them together in groups of 5 to 10 businesses. And I guess that Couch to 5K becomes more like a park run at that stage, where they're kind of all in it together. Everyone is equally brilliant and equally Muppet-like all at the same time. And we're all kind of just going through it on a journey. And I really, really like that. And it's fantastic to do the journey with other businesses to get ideas as to what they're doing, insights into their struggles. But that journey is £300 a month, for 3 months, sub £1,000, which makes it much more accessible to smaller businesses to have a go. And if they literally are start off sub 150k, then it's £150 a month, £450. So, we've really tried to make it accessible. And I think that's one of the reasons we've had success, is that the price point has been appropriate, and people value what they're going through, whether they're paying, £150 a month or £1,500 a month. The value that they will get out of that at the end of the program is proportionate and commensurate to the size business they are. And we've had literally dozens and dozens of bits of feedback saying this has just suited us down to the ground and helped us just get going, really.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice process. And so I heard about you through just lots of like a friend of a friend of a friend. Somebody eventually said this guy can help you. And we did think it was a great cost-effective way of doing this, because I didn't really have any idea of how to do it, and we wanted to do it a bit more in-house rather than just pay somebody to do it. But I think it's really nice. What's been really beneficial is having all the other companies to kind of network with a bit, I suppose, because we've actually so through Rebecca Kimber of Create, we met. We pledged to plant 1 million trees. Actually, we met Marcus at Fountain, and he's doing our marketing now. So it's opened up a whole new network of businesses to us as well. And obviously they're all like-minded businesses, which is great. And they're the kind of businesses we want to work with. So
I think that's the great thing, right? I mean, it's a movement, people. It's a community. That's the most powerful part about it, right?
Yeah,
would you say?
Absolutely right. One of my clients the other day wrote to me and said, I've used 5 of your network referrals. They've got someone helping with diversity and inclusion, someone else is helping with their carbon reduction plans, someone else is helping them with their supply chain engagement and their customer engagement in terms of doing a bunch of surveys for them. Someone else is talking to them about employee ownership. There's a whole huge range of different things they've been able to get plugged into. And they said the value of plugging into a known and trusted community who understand the B Corp journey has saved them a lot of hassle and probably a lot of cost as well. So that's been good. And I think the community is probably the best thing about it. We all like a journey and a process to become better. That's great. We all like B Corp certification. That's great. But becoming part of that community, that family, that tribe, if you will, not just nationally, they're about to announce that there's 1,000 B Corps in the UK now. It's the fastest growing B Corp community in the world. It's up from about 500 last year and is on track to be 2,000 next year. So it's doubling each year. So it's a great community to be part of. But part of what I do is I'm also co-chair of the Bristol and Bath B Local, which is near to where I live. So we've got about 60 to 65 B Corps locally. We meet up regularly, encourage each other. And some of those B Corps have been B Corps for 5 years or so. They've recertified once or twice. And the knowledge that exists within that network is huge. When you certify the first time, you think it's pretty hard, but you're to a certain extent picking the low-hanging fruit. But when you certify a second time, you really need to reach higher and stretch higher. So having other businesses around you who've been through that journey and can give you some advice and support on that journey is hugely beneficial. We get together and do things. We went to a local baker's that is a B Corp baker's, and we all baked B-shaped loaves to celebrate B. Next month, we're going to visit a company that have installed some beehives, so we're all going to become little beekeepers at the B Corp. Next March, to celebrate B Corp month. B Corp month is celebrated each March each year. We're getting together and running a purpose fest, which will look at things like donut economics and diversity and inclusion and employee mental health and well-being. So we've got a whole purpose fest day on the schedule, and that's being done within that community. So it's a brilliant place to live and grow.
I think as well, one of the most important things is, like B Corp, is these are thousands of businesses that do really great things for society, and I think having that space where they can collaborate, that's probably the only way we can try and get some progress in our society. So we've kind of probably exceeded that point of sustainability.
I totally agree. It's a little bit power to the people, but I do believe that. I mean, we've seen recently that you just cannot rely on the government to be coming along anytime soon and sorting things out. If anything, you could say that they make things worse to a large extent, which is a real pity, because they should be able to legislate and improve things significantly. But kind of let's ignore that. Let's just do what we can. And if enough of us do what we can, then collectively we can make a huge difference. I mean, if you were able to add up the difference, the impact that 1,000 businesses just in the UK, 5,000 or 6,000 internationally, are making on the planet and to their people, it's absolutely huge. And I think that's the way to go, is just all of us, take responsibility for what we can do. That's really all we can do. And I think if we can step up and do that in a better way, in a healthier way, then that's really where B Corp comes into its own.
Well said.
Yeah. And do you think it's something that smaller businesses can easily get on board with? Because I guess, in the current economic climate, one of your main aim is really going to have to be to make profit, isn't it, and make sure your business keeps going. So is this something that is achievable for the small business in your opinion?
Yeah, 100%. I'm very pro profit. I want to make as much profit as I can, but in a healthy and purposeful way. But someone once said a line, no margin, no mission. And I totally get that, so we need to be making healthy profits to be a healthy business. But in terms of when you're focused, especially if there's only a few of you in the business, you're spinning lots of different plates, time is really precious. I absolutely get that. read the book, got the t-shirt myself. But what I would say is this stuff is really, really important. It's hugely important. And it ultimately is a question of prioritization. And to go through the 10-step program, we are looking at broadly 2 hours a week across 2 or 3 months. So it's a kind of time-bound commitment, about half an hour prep before you get on the call, 45 minutes a week on a call, and then 45 minutes homework type stuff afterwards. So we don't want this to take over anyone's life so that they can't carry on and do their business. But changing the world takes more than 10 minutes a week. Ultimately, it does take a commitment, but we think that 2 hours a week is a fair ask. And the only kind of time-bound thing is the weekly call. When you do the half-hour prep, when you do the 45 minutes homework is flexible and up to you each week. But we have found, we've had lots, as I say, 120 small businesses sub 2 million, but I've had of that 5 have been pre-startup, which has been really interesting. They came and talked to me and said, should we trade for a year? And then when we've been trading for a year, shall we then try and go through the B Corp journey? And of course, they are more than welcome to do that. But when we unpacked the curriculum and looked at what we would be doing, what we would be studying, how we would be getting our processes and policies together, understanding what data we needed to collect, they were really keen to do it, and subsequently have said, thank goodness we did that. Otherwise, we'd have traded for a year and have missed a few tricks along the way in terms of things that we wanted to collect and processes that should have been in place from the beginning. So I don't think that there's any such thing as a company that is too young to do it. That's not to say there's, if you've been trading for 20 years, it's still a great thing to do. But honestly, the sooner the better, I think is a good thing. And it is something manageable. Ellie, you're part of running a busy business. And it does take that priority and it does take that commitment. But having that slot in your diary each week, I also think one of the good things about doing it with someone else like me or one of the other B leaders, it kind of keeps you honest and keeps you accountable, and you don't want to turn up and have no homework to show teacher. There's something intrinsic within each of us that wants to keep on with that. And when you are doing it with a bunch of others in the cohort, the parkrun approach, the fact that everybody else is in the same place, they're all busy, but they're all committed to doing it. I think that puts some fire in your belly to have a go and try and keep up with things. So I think there's a real kind of psychological benefit to doing this with a bunch of others or with a mentor or a coach. It keeps you honest and keeps you accountable.
Yeah, it definitely holds you accountable. You don't want to get left behind. Do you think what if there's a business out there that's thinking about starting the process, but they're like, oh, I don't know if it's for us. What do you think are the top 3 or top few? Why should they do it? What are the main benefits that their business is going to see from becoming a B Corp or going through that process?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I would say. Firstly, practically, I'd say don't open the impact assessment and try and go through it in one hit, because if there's anything to scare the pants off of you,
I've done that actually. Don't do it.
that would be it. So that would be my top tip: is don't do that. Talk to someone and go through it in a sensible way. But the key things that clients report back to us in terms of benefits they've seen regularly in the sort of top 3 is recruitment. Getting B Corp or being on the B Corp journey or having got the B Corp badge, it really does help you to attract the right people and the right talent who share your DNA. So that's definitely something. Kind of following on from that, retaining staff as well. We've heard numerous tales of people that have been headhunted or attempted to be headhunted away from a business. And the people have said, well, you're not a B Corp. I'm not joining you because, this is my crew. This is who I want to be a part of. So the recruitment piece regularly comes up there. Risk is another thing I think that is often not thought about, but comes out of going through the journey quite well. So we don't know what we don't know. And I think we're in danger as businesses, especially newer businesses, of being blindsided by stuff that we didn't even consider or think about. And I think one of the valuable things of going through the journey is you get to think about stuff that wasn't necessarily on your radar, consider it, and then put a process or a policy in place so that that helps you to manage and identify and mitigate any risks that you might have out there. With the smaller business community, another big benefit that is regularly reported is it's helped them attract investment when they'd be going out for investment rounds. A lot of the investor community looks at a B Corp badge as being 70% of their due diligence already done. So that's really useful. And then, one can't deny it. People do find that it does help their bottom line as well, because customers want to be doing business with purposeful businesses. So having that B Corp badge on your front door undoubtedly does attract additional business, without a shadow of a doubt. And whilst that's not a reason for doing it, I wouldn't really want any business to say, I want more business, let me get B Corp. It's a marketing strategy. I think they'd have completely lost the plot if they did that. The fact is, it does bring additional profitability into your business. There was a study done about a year ago by B Lab, and it came out that B Corps were trading 28 times better than the UK GDP at the time. So B Corps, is undeniable knowledge. I was reading a report from McKinsey this weekend that was saying, don't let purpose be on the periphery of your strategy. Put purpose at the heart of your strategy, and it can really ignite what you're trying to do. So there's lots of big companies that have done big studies into this that are reiterating what I've just outlined.
I think the thing I've noticed being on the other side of the equation is literally just, it's a framework just to make your business better, in all areas,
I think with us, we're a small business that's kind of rapidly growing still, and it's so easy just to forget certain things and not can't think of an example, but it just gives you that framework, doesn't it, to make sure you're doing everything right, and then do and best practice really, what you should be doing,
and I think it helps build that story around it as well. So people, like you talked about, retaining and attracting talent, like people really feel like being part of this organization means something, and we're doing it for something, and that's why we come here. And I think that's a really powerful thing in a company.
I get a lot of companies think about their mission statement as they're going through this. What do we want to be saying out to the world? That is not, we want to be the best manufacturer or the best service provider or whatever their core business offering is, but how that relates and impacts on their people and the planet. I think, getting that baked into the mission statement is a really useful thing. And a company like Reuseabox, it's kind of within the DNA. It does what it says on the tin. We're saving the planet one box at a time type thing. But I think having that just thought process to come aside and think about, well, how do we want to communicate that people and planet is important to us and a core part of our business, and then put that into our front of house messaging, which is our mission statement, is a really useful exercise for businesses to go through.
Yeah, and I think there's just a thing built inside all humans where, if we're doing good in the world, it's attractive to us. We want to be part of it somehow. I mean, that's what I think anyway. No research to back that up.
I totally agree. I mean, it's been interesting. All 180 businesses that I've helped with B Corp so far have all been good businesses. It's like you're preaching to the choir to a large extent. They're already doing good, but let's put them through this framework that helps them become even better. So that's been the kind of early adopter portion of the overall pie. What I'm interested in is, over the next year or two, is having a conversation with businesses that are not necessarily intrinsically good, don't have it baked into their DNA, but seeing if we can walk a journey through the 10-step program with those businesses and helping them to wake up and smell the coffee and see that, that it's hugely valuable in terms of doing it. because it's the right thing to do, but also ultimately because it's going to impact their bottom line as well. But I am really interested in having a B Corp journey with some not quite so saintly organisations. I think that would be cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Who's the one organisation that you'd love to you'd love to transform into a B Corp? You could just pick one of the most evil corporations.
I'm going to go for two.
Right.
One is Coca-Cola and one is
Oh, nice.
Let's just get it out there. Coca-Cola sponsoring COP27. What on earth is and Shell, Shell sponsoring the British cycling team. I mean, come on, really, of all the companies they could have chosen to partner with, whoever's going out and trying to get their sponsorship just needs to have a long, hard look at themselves. So they'd be the two companies that I'd call out. From an industry perspective, right at the other end of the extreme, not because they are a bad industry, by definition, they're an exemplary industry, but an industry that I would love to get into would be the accountancy industry. That is because accountants for many years have been auditing a company's books, a company's numbers. And I think if accountants could get on board with the B Corp framework, they would be able to offer their clients not just the service of auditing their numbers, but also auditing their social and environmental impact as well. And that would be great for an additional revenue stream for accountants. If there's any listening to this, it's a great extra revenue stream. But I just think that they operate in every single business across the land. And if we could get B Corp to be a part of your annual financial audit and do a social and environmental audit at the same time, that could be a real game changer. So, the accountancy industry, I think, would be a really interesting industry to try and target and do something with. The challenge is, over the last 2 years, I have tried quite a lot, and they're a pretty conservative bunch by and large, and like what they know, which is numbers. So, it's not going to be a quick thing, but if I had focus on one particular industry, it would be the accountancy industry, because I think they can impact and have a ripple effect across all of their client base. And I'd really like to explore that in a little more detail.
Yeah, I think I guess the most important thing is to get businesses thinking differently, thinking more, purpose above profit. But with the ones you named, like Coca-Cola and Shell, if they actually became a B Corp, do you think that would devalue the B Corp? Because do you not think there would be some kind of outcry? Like they've sponsored COP27 and everyone's like, they can't sponsor COP27 because they're evil.
I think if they go through the framework, though, if they go through the framework, then they've earned it, haven't they?
Shell, in particular, that one. Can you? I think I agree with you. I think all businesses, especially those ones, need to be that, like, they can only, any good that they can do is definitely a step forwards. But I feel like people would maybe get the wrong idea about that, and it might devalue B Corp.
I think if B Corp loses its robustness, then that whole brand is shot, and the business model that B Corp are running is shot if that loses its credibility. So I think that there is no danger that B Corp will remain a robust certification. Shell would not get B Corp certification if they were to certify, because of the amount of bad that they are doing in the world. No matter how much greenwashing they try and dress it up with, their current business model will just, would just never enable them to be a B Corp. Having said that, if they went through the impact assessment, would it give them some ideas as to how they could improve that business model? Yes, it would. Would their shareholders agree to that? The current crop of shareholders? No chance, because the shareholders ultimately are more interested in their dividends than doing good. But I think there is a growing movement of organizations and investors who want to be investing in a purposeful way. And people are certainly divesting from, poor and fossil fuel type organizations. I think those businesses will increasingly find it difficult to keep investors and retain investors. One of the B Corps that went through certification recently was Coutts Bank. And one of the brilliant areas of impact that they're able to bring is they are able to influence their client base that are an ultra high net worth client base who are really interested in what they're doing and where they're investing. And the Coutts investment team, I know because I've spoken to many of them, are busy, giving appropriate advice to help their ultra high net worth clients move away from a potentially destructive portfolio into one that is purposeful and regenerative. So, it's fascinating what you can do, and how you can bring impact to the party, really. And I'm fascinated to see what the next few years do. But in answer to your question, if Coca-Cola or Shell were to go through the impact assessment, I'd absolutely applaud them, and I'd be happy to help them in that journey. But I think it would be a painful journey for them ultimately, because they would have to hold a fairly robust mirror up to themselves and ask themselves a lot of questions that they might not like the answer to.
I guess the big manufacturers that produce, huge amounts of plastic, there's huge opportunity for, embracing more recycle. I know a lot of them are already doing that, but I think that would be a great place to start.
I think a lot of bigger manufacturers and organizations, I think they can be more sustainable just by being more efficient. I think they just got to change their mindset a bit. But
it's not an easy road by any means. At the Blue Earth Summit last week, I was listening to the chief exec of Iceland. They're a big business. They're not a B Corp, but they're a big business. And, they have got a lot of challenges. And with the Ukraine war coming along, that has driven down access to a whole bunch of ingredients that people need for food to eat. So they've had to roll back on some of their commitments around palm oil, for example, in order to be able to continue to make food for people to eat. And the marketplace that Iceland are in is probably providing food for some of the most economically challenged people that are out there. So I understand that and I hear that, but he was very vociferous in saying, as soon as we can access those other ingredients, we will. And it's highlighted to us the vulnerabilities we've got around food security, and having, a few companies like Ukraine and Russia be providing 80% of some of the world's resources that we need access to. So it's been an interesting thing. I saw recently that innocent drinks were pulled up on greenwashing because they said something like drinking an innocent drink helps the planet. And they were, brought to task by the appropriate authorities. And they said, but we've got 50% of our bottles now that are made from recycled plastic. And the authority said, that's great, but that means 50% is not made from recycled plastic. And we need you to go further and faster in order to change that. So I think companies, if going through B Corp helps them get on the journey and become better, I've no argument about that. The other thing that I think is really important is, once you're a B Corp, to a certain extent, you've put your head above the turret to be shot at, and I think it therefore holds you to a higher standard of account. There are thousands of businesses with really, really poor business practices, and you rarely hear them being called out. But if there is a B Corp out there with a poor business practice, it gets called out quickly and loudly. And so part of me thinks that being part of the B Corp community keeps you more honest and kind of forces you to walk the walk, because you've put it on your front door and you're talking the talk, and you have to follow that up with the appropriate actions. So uh, it's interesting on a whole bunch of different levels as to the power of good that it can have.
I guess there was all that with Brewdog, wasn't there?
Yeah,
Their employees signed
for
Mhm.
an
sure.
open letter, didn't they?
Yeah, and B Lab have put a statement out there. You can Google it, B Lab statement on BrewDog or B Lab investigation on BrewDog, and they put an updated statement out this summer that outlined what they had done, how they'd investigated, what steps BrewDog is now taking to improve, and they are going back in to re-audit in a few months' time to double check to make sure that's happened. So I quite like the fact that they didn't do a knee-jerk reaction, right, Brewdog, you're out of here, but they have done a thorough investigation, which, to be fair, took longer than they expected because of all of the COVID things, and they couldn't actually access certain buildings. It wasn't an ideal scenario, but I think the way in which they handled themselves was good and strong and proper. And let's see where things land with Brewdog. But the fact that Brewdog got called out, I'm sure that there are other brewers around the world that are also have toxic work cultures or are not doing things environmentally well, who just fly under the radar because they're not a B Corp, and people kind of accept that some poor practices happen in business. But yeah, I love the fact that BrewDog were and are still a B Corp, but are being held with their feet to the flames to make sure that they do the right thing. So it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think the CEO was on some podcast, wasn't he? And I didn't know much about Brewdog, but they are actually doing a lot of great things.
Yeah,
So
really great initiatives.
I think you can only applaud them, really. Obviously, they've had to pull their socks up and sort those things out. So
I think every business is going to make mistakes as well.
yeah,
And culture's not a static thing; it's always
Yeah.
on a daily basis. So
There was also quite a lot of pushback when Nespresso went through B Corp because they're part of Nestle. Nestle would probably be number 3 on my solar list if I was to expand. But what I think is really interesting is, so there is one business unit within the Nestle empire that has been through the B Corp program. So who's not to say now that by going through that program, Nestle will have learned things and be starting to improve business improvements across the Nestle empire and starting to migrate towards being a better business. I think that that's absolutely laudable and a good thing to do. Unilever has got dozens of big businesses in their portfolio, and they're working through those businesses one business at a time with the aim of every business in the Unilever group being B Corp by 2030. So it's not going to be a quick fix, but they've got a roadmap and they've got a strategy to move towards that. And with these big businesses, you're not going to turn that with Shell, literal oil tanker, around quickly. But I think it can be done if there is a will, and I think ultimately people have got a role to play. One thing I would love to see, partly across the B Corp movement, but across the wider movement, is I would love to see us as individuals, as businesses and as individuals, getting our act together more to use our collective voice.
mhm.
If we were able to, for example, boycott all Shell petrol stations for the month of November, that would send a huge message. Now, I'm not saying we should then boycott BP in December. I'm not saying it's all on Shell. They're not the one and only bad egg in that lot. But I think, if we could get our act together and take big moves like that to do big boycotts. Similarly, if around the world people stopped buying Coca-Cola for a month, would that change things? It would change things within hours, not within days. And I think that we underestimate the people power that is in our hands. You know, every pound we spend is a vote that we cast, and I think thinking that through and being more meaningful and joined up in how we do that is something that we ought to be thinking about. There's numerous organizations out there that are trying to do that, but I would love to see organizations like B Corp try to coalesce their community around that and amplify that beyond the 1,000 B Corps in the UK to make a real difference. I think you'd be getting to millions of people if you were able to do that.
But ultimately, the power does lie with consumers. I mean, we control corporations and they control governments, and that's how it works.
Yeah, it kind of concerns me that people just either don't know or don't really care, possibly. I was talking to somebody that the accountant put us in touch with somebody. I think it's is it Grimsby Football Club? A football club are trying to become a B Corp, which they're going through the process. And obviously they were saying that it's been quite difficult for them because it's not really designed for them. So it's been quite a difficult process. I don't know how. I think they have submitted the application. I don't know how whether they've been assessed yet. But I think if B Corp can expand into other areas like that, and that football club can share some of those values with their supporters,
sure,
that's definitely going to be a good thing.
Local to us in Bristol is the heady heights of Forest Green Rovers, none less. But it's been amazing to see what their owners have done. So they're ultimately owned by the same guy that owns Ecotricity.
Oh, okay.
So they and the whole football team are vegan. They've literally moved the whole football team vegan, and you would imagine there was a bit of pushback, and there was a bit of pushback. But all of them now, I've seen interviews with some of the football players, and they all say it's been brilliant. It's really helped them health-wise, and it's improved the carbon footprint. And so when you go to a Forest Green Rovers match, there's no pie van that you can buy a steak and kidney pie. It's all vegan food, and the away supporters take the mickey out of them. But actually, making a stance like that, it's been absolutely hilarious, but also really good. So, let's all be a little bit more Forest Green Rovers, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so final question before we wrap it up then. Big one for you, Andy. So, how do you think the world will look in 10 years' time? Or maybe how do you want it to look as well? Maybe it's like a double-edged question.
How I think it will look and how I want it to look are the same thing, but not necessarily at the same pace. So I do really believe in human nature. Sometimes it's deeply frustrating and saddening the way people trash the planet and trash each other. But I am optimistic that we will come together. We watched a bit of Frozen Planet last night, and Sir David, is an absolute giant in the world. But I think things like Frozen Planet do shift the consciousness of the nation, and I think in a positive way. So I'd love it to be better. I do think we've not really got climate deniers so much more, but we've got climate delayers. It doesn't really matter quite yet. Let's not worry about it. I heard a really interesting snippet the other day. They said, if I was abusing you regularly by punching you in the face every day, and I said by 2050 I'm planning to stop punching you, by 2030 I plan to be punching you slightly less hard, would that be acceptable? And obviously the answer is no. Stop now. Stop right now. And it just made me think, that's really where we need to be with our approach to climate change. It's kind of like stop now. And the nonsense of issuing more oil exploration licenses and fracking licenses, it's like you have just got to be joking. If what we need to invest more in green and renewable energy, then let's do that at a greater pace. We've known about this and we've missed a trick by not investing 20 years previously. But yeah, and I think more people are going on side now. It's not the remit of a bunch of tree hugging hippies anymore. There are a lot of ordinary individual people within the country who really believe that this is the right thing to do. So I am optimistic. I'm an eternal optimist. That does mean I regularly do get disappointed, but I refuse to become a pessimist or even perhaps a realist. I want to remain an optimist, and I want to encourage others to be optimistic and step up and make the changes.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think we need more people like you in the world.
Good. I hope I can encourage and inspire, hundreds more. That will be a great legacy to leave. And ultimately, we all think about legacy and what mark are we going to leave on the planet. And not all of mine have been perfect by any means, far from it sometimes. But I do hope that what I'm involved with now is something that is planet changing and life changing to people that are going through their social and environmental impact process. So it's been great to work with you on your Reuseabox B Corp journey. Thank you so much for that. It's been humbling to see how you've been able to do that in a really diligent and realistic and pragmatic way. So well done for sticking with the program. And I look forward to working with you going forwards and many, many others. Thank you so much for your time today. I've really appreciated it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your help with B Corp. And obviously, if there's any businesses listening, Andy, especially Coca-Cola, Andy is your man to help you get through B Corp.
All right. Yeah, nice. Good to see you both.
Thanks for listening to Earth Your While, the podcast that uncovers the truth about how to make your business better for the planet. We hope today's been Earth Your While.
Earlier this year, we joined a group of inspirational business leaders who pledged to plant 1 million trees over the next 10 years. If you'd like to help us reach our goal, or you'd like to find out some more information, head over to reuseabox.co.uk/earthyourwhile.